Welcome to At Ease featuring President Mark Welsh. I'm Susan Balabina, and I have the pleasure as serving as the President's Chief of Staff. You know, President Welsh, it's been a busy couple of months of 2025. I don't know about you, but time has certainly flown by. And while we anticipated to do these podcasts monthly on a monthly cadence, we decided today might be time for a special edition podcast, right? We've got some exciting things to share that we'll get to and some exciting guests. But first, let's talk about some of the really great things that are happening. And first, let's go to some really great former student news. So the George and Barbara Bush Foundation is just a phenomenal organization. And we have recently had a former student, Alice Gonzalez Yates, class of 99, I believe, who has been named the CEO of the George and Barbara Bush Foundation. I think you know Alice well from your time at the Bush School. Why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
Sure. And at ease, Chief. Alice Yates is just a great human being, first and foremost. She has a wonderful family. She's done a tremendous job of supporting her husband in his military career for a number of years, while she has developed a career of her own on the side in fundraising, project management, philanthropy. She's really a remarkable lady. She's been working for the Texas A&M Foundation for Tyson Volkel and his crew, supporting Bush School DC for the last couple of years, and has done a tremendous job there. I think people are going to love having Alice as the president and CEO of the George and Barbara Bush Foundation. And the best thing about that for Texas A&M is that the George and Barbara Bush Foundation is really important to what we do here. They provide financial support for the Bush School. They provide all kinds of support for the Presidential Library and the multiple Bush family programs that benefit Texas A&M, draw visitors to our campus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is a great fit, I think, for A&M, and I can't wait to get Alice on campus and welcome her home.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit, too. I've had the pleasure of meeting Alice. I don't know her near as well as you do, but she just seems like a phenomenal person. And you talk a lot about the importance of the affiliates and have referred to them as our best friends, and it's great to have great people leading those partner organizations for us. Let's also talk about some of the interesting things that are happening as it relates to space research. So the Board of Regents authorized you to negotiate a contract with Aegis Aerospace. We have many great space research efforts across the university. We think it's one of the things that sets us apart and really helps identify our research identity. So tell us about that contract and its significance.
Yeah, it's a contract, a partnership actually with Aegis Aerospace, who really importantly, I think, is led by a great Aggie, Stephanie Murray, who's class of 00N14. Stephanie leads Aegis Aerospace these days. She's brilliant, by the way. She's also really supportive of Texas A&M and Aggies everywhere. And we're going to partner with them with a lead with the College of Engineering and of course, a couple of our system agencies to put the first university lab in space. The difference there is that this lab is going to be on the outside of the space station. Other universities have done research inside the space station, but we're the first to have a standing lab on the outside of the space station, which is going to be really spectacular, I think.
Yeah, wow, that's something.
Yeah, since we became a space grant university, we've been kind of leading the charge in research across our faculty in so many different ways in space, from space propulsion to materials engineering to space agriculture, space medicine, space policy, a little bit of everything. Robotics is a big field for us, hypersonics and how we use them in space. And so the next step is now do our lab work in space, figure out how we help this effort even more to settle the moon, to settle Mars. It's going to be an exciting time for Texas A&M, but we've been in the middle of this charge for quite some time, and we've got some remarkable faculty members who are doing it.
Sure. Fits really well with us, I think. I think all of your listeners are interested in leadership searches, and we've got a lot of leadership searches in progress. Do you want to give us an update on where we are with certain search committees?
Sure. Our Vice President for Student Affairs position description is now posted online. We're accepting applicants for that Vice President position. It's really an important one for the university, obviously. So I know we'll get a bunch of great candidates for this one. So they're off and running. Well, we have dean searches underway for architecture, for pharmacy, and for veterinary medicine and biomedical sciences. And those search committees are formed, operating, and in progress. So hopefully more news on those soon. Our Commandant search brought 4 great finalists to campus a couple of weeks ago. We've collected all the inputs from everybody who had a chance to visit with them, and I suspect we'll hear an announcement on the new Commandant here pretty quickly, hopefully sometime this week.
Awesome. It's exciting. It's exciting. Let's switch gears a little bit now and talk a little bit about the political realities we're facing. So, as we all know, we're in the midst of the 89th state legislative session. You've spent some time in Austin. We talked about that on the last podcast. But we're also in the midst of managing a lot of executive orders related to the federal transition and implications of various state and federal orders that we're seeing. So, talk about what that means to our faculty, staff, and students.
Well, it means lots of concern to start with. I think the one thing that we all need to keep in mind is that we need to be doing 2 things right now. The first thing we need to be doing is our due diligence and make sure we're planning for whatever the outcome of all these activities and executive orders is eventually. And the second thing we have to do is let's not panic yet. Let's be patient. Let's make sure we get information, we share information, we look at what the impact could be. But turmoil at the beginning of a new presidential administration is really not new in Washington, D.C. It's very common for new staff, new political appointees to come into their positions to kind of freeze things in their agency for some period of time while they figure out how they're going to manage their decision process, the things they're going to prioritize versus the previous administration, et cetera. I think the difference this time is the volume of it. And the suddenness of some of the activity that people maybe weren't expecting, with the emails of government employees, the people being put on furlough or on suspension or released outright over the weekend, for example, which is a little bit different. And so I think we just need to stay calm, figure out what the impact could potentially be, and be ready to deal with that when it happens. But don't get too upset too quickly. Our provost is doing a good job, I believe, of getting information out weekly now to our faculty on the latest information that we have available. There's been a group formed on campus that's doing a great job of gathering all that information, posting it on a website so everybody knows the latest that's come out of Washington and latest updates from each of the individual agencies that can be affected. Research, obviously, is the biggest concern for us because we have a lot of research funded by federal dollars. How we are impacted by that is going to be a very emotional and passionate topic here on campus, and so we need to stay abreast of where those things stand. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of it right now, but we have to keep our finger on the pulse every day here and make sure that we're ready for the eventual outcomes of these things. More to follow on this one. It's not going to make it easy, but I think we're doing a pretty good job, led by the VPR, SRS, and their teams of kind of keeping track of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think it is important to have people understand that you have charged a group with meeting once a week to really dive into the tracking of all the various different orders, what their implications are, what administrative decisions may be needed, and what communication is needed. And I've been meeting with that group, and they're doing just a stellar job of just keeping track of everything and providing strong and steady voices on how we move forward. We have Robin Page from the Council of Principal Investigators that meets with us, and Angie Hill-Price from Faculty Senate, because we know we want to include their voices in all of those discussions to represent the various components. So I feel...
By the way, the A&M system is also meeting routinely, keeping track of this from a system level and helping us answer any questions we can't get answered.
Yeah, and I would say that Joe Elob, the Vice Chancellor for Research, and Ray Bonilla, the Office of General Counsel, they are all doing a great job giving all the members in the A&M system guidance as it becomes available. So much more to come on that as we move through the spring. Okay, next up, We have two very special guests who are going to join us on the heels of a very successful Citizenship and Service Summit. This was actually what inspired us to do a special edition podcast because we were so excited by the outcomes of that summit and really want to communicate about the potential impact of this initiative. So, coming up next, we will have General Kim Field and Morgan Shorn, Bush School students, so stick around and we'll be right back.
Did you know KAMU Studios offers 14 original shows? All of these locally hosted productions are featured on our local shows, series, and podcast webpage. Topics cover Texas A&M, art, politics, music, books, gardening, community issues, and more. Find what interests you on our website. Then listen on your favorite podcast platform. Go to tx.ag/KAMU FM shows and start listening today.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with two great people that I'm really excited to introduce you to today. And we're here to talk about our new Citizenship and Service Initiative. And let me briefly introduce this segment by telling you what this initiative is all about. I have always been immensely impressed by the willingness of Aggies to get involved, whether it's in helping a friend, participating in their community, or leading in as a CEO of a great organization. Aggies don't stand around and do nothing when there's work to be done. I believe the world needs more Aggies everywhere. And I also believe that our state, our nation, and our world needs great citizens. And so the idea of graduating not just great Aggies, but great citizens is something that really appeals to me. And this university has been doing that for 148 years. But I think we can do it even better. And that's what the Citizenship and Service Initiative is. And we'll get into the details here in just a minute. But first, let me introduce you to a couple of the people who are turning it into reality. And I'm going to start with the lady we hired to actually put this program together. The Honorable Brigadier General Retired Kim Field. Kim, welcome to At Ease.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background, starting with where you went to school?
Okay, so I'm not an Aggie. I'm a West Pointer, class of, I'm not going to say what class. But this place somehow has just such a great spirit. So I know service and a great institution, and this one's really a great one. So I went to school. I was in the Army for 27 years. I was a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State after I got out of the Army in stabilization, conflict resolution. Went back to Afghanistan. That had been my fourth tour in Afghanistan. Ended up then at the Bush School as the Executive Director of the Center for Grand Strategy, the Albritton Center for Grand Strategy. And then I left there after a couple years and went to Special Operations Command to become the J5, the Director of Strategy, Plans, and Policy. And then I got the wonderful call. Do you want to come back? And the answer was easy.
Kim was a military police officer in the Army. She actually also served combat tours in Iraq, Somalia, along with those 4 tours in Afghanistan. And by the way, when she said she went back to Afghanistan a 4th time, it was as the senior advisor to the commander of NATO and U.S. forces in Afghanistan, General Scott Miller. And so Kim has been around the world a little bit. She's done some phenomenal things, and she can continuing to do that right here on campus now with this program. Kim, tell us about your family.
Oh, I have 4 sons, ages 30 to 26, and no twins. Just a very tight shot group. They're all doing great. Thanks for asking, sir. And I have my parents. I still have my parents, 91 and 82. So really
Fantastic.
Lucky.
Yeah, fantastic. Here between Kim and I is Morgan Shorn. Morgan is a first-gen Aggie from Dallas, Texas. Morgan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? What did you do in high school? What got you excited about coming to A&M? What have you done here at A&M since you arrived as an undergrad?
Yeah, so I was a tennis player in high school, and we had a great tennis tournament down here every year in Aggieland that we'd come and visit, and fell in love as a freshman coming to visit. I just saw that the students were different, and I would walk around and just was so impressed by this place, and kind of decided on A&M really early on in my high school experience, and kind of that was my North Star. I always knew I wanted to come here. So yeah, applied early, got in, was super excited, went to fish camp. I was first gen, so I did not know what was happening. I was like, these people are they're awesome people, but we're going to figure it out together. I'm like, okay. But I have since been on campus. I've loved being involved with a bunch of really cool things, like Gilbert Leadership Conference, Maroon Coats, etc. Have fallen in love with the way A&M does student organizations, and I'm a Bush School student. So I'm a senior right now, doing a 3+2 program at the Bush School, Masters in International Affairs, and I love it. And my crowning achievement is I got my baby sister, who is a sophomore here, to come to Texas A&M. She's a civil engineer, and she is far better than me in every way. So it's been awesome to share it with her.
Well, I bet. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on all that. What do you do in your spare time?
I love to read. Specifically, I love nonfiction and biographies. I'm reading one about Benjamin Franklin right now, which is very timely for citizenship. Awesome. And I love to play tennis and pickleball, anything with a racket. And I play some intramurals too, so you might see me at the rec playing some really bad basketball, but loving every second of it.
And after graduation, what's next?
I don't know. I have a 5th year to finish my master's out at the Bush School. I want to go into public service. I believe in what President Bush called a noble calling, and so hopefully I'll figure something out. But at the moment, it's up in the air.
Yeah, I'm guessing you'll probably figure it out.
Thank you.
Just a wild guess. Morgan, thank you for being here today, and thanks for being a great Aggie.
Thank you for having me.
Kim, talk to us about Citizenship and Service Initiative initially. What are the major components in your mind of this new idea?
Yeah. So we think about it. We devised this structure, this framework, and we think that there are 4 really important components: character, knowledge, skills, and then the practice of doing it, or civic engagement, or civic friendship, whatever we want to call it. So each one has some building blocks inside it. Values. It's clear. RELIS is all over here. It's really front and center. So maybe more reflection on that, maybe, among all the students. Personal purpose, some examination. And we talk about knowledge. We talk about understanding the Constitution and civics, but not just understanding your government, but understanding the rights and obligations of every citizen. In this democracy, it's essential. So there's some learning that has to happen there. And then there's some really critical skills. Civil discourse comes to the forefront whenever you talk to faculty, students, everyone. We think there might be a little bit of a problem in America with that Aggies can certainly help address. And then there's other skills, media literacy, and then the all-important pillar of go out and do something good. Take all that you learned in the classroom, take all you learned in your student organizations, and go practice. That starts right here at home, and then in our communities. And then we can take it to the state, and you can take it to the nation. Because I do really think that this place could potentially, across all those pillars, start, national movement. I really believe it.
Fantastic. Morgan, why does citizenship matter to students?
I think citizenship matters to students. I think A&M, it's part of what makes A&M special is we have such a rich history of military service and public service, and we just are, I think, an institution that really values the state we're from and the university or in the country we're from, and so I think students are excited to kind of become better citizens. Also, like, we're in the time period where we're going to become citizens. You know what I mean? Like, we show up on campus as 18-year-olds, kind of just becoming fully functioning citizens. And so this is a really special incubator time to become fully fledged, hopeful citizens that, future city board members and people who are involved in their community. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity for students to learn about it while they're in this 4-year period at the beginning of their time being a lifelong citizen.
Okay. Students are really busy here. We've got a third of our students are in an engineering program, which is a tough major. We got a lot of STEM programs as well, and a lot of really in-depth other programs from arts and sciences to the social sciences to policy to whatever. How do we get students interested in even more of them participating in this Citizenship and Service Initiative?
I think you start, in my belief, I think you start with student organizations and groups of students. I think college students are always going to be attracted to other groups of college students. And I know, at least from my personal, anecdotal experience, when an older Aggie told me, this is an incredible opportunity, you should look into this, that meant more than anything else. And so I think organically we're going to have word of mouth talking about our initiatives. And then also, if our initiatives are successful and they do actually better students and make them better citizens, the attraction to students will be natural. If they can see the worth of what the initiative is doing, then students are going to be attracted anyways.
Okay. Kim, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree that that once the spark is lit in the culture, it will grow. I think we potentially do need to incentivize a little bit to start, to get out the gate. And I think there's ways to do that. Other schools do have service learning structure in place. We're going to look at some of those lessons and think about that. I think that we can also show all the opportunities out there to students, because there's so many, but they don't. I think the stats aren't really that high, and we think they might be going down a little bit with level of engagement in these groups across the campus with this huge growth. So I think we just need to make all these opportunities even more visible to them, and we have a couple ideas on how to do that as well. So those are a couple things that I think we can do fairly easily.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on campus already.
We've
got academic courses. We've got public service events. We've got clubs that are engaged with the community a lot, doing great things. Is the idea to identify those things, kind of bring them together, connect the dots, if you will, and then figure out how to build a program that students will enjoy getting involved in while they're learning?
Yeah, I think that's really it. I think that, we just have a long list of things that are already out there, like PPIP, the Public Policy Internship Program. Yeah, and we know that there's room in there to grow. Students don't know about it. So we could show them that, but there's so much here. So when we say connect the dots, I think we, at the summit we recently had, someone had suggested that the students plot their own path. They pick things, across all those pillars of values, knowledge, skills, and the practice of. And they put it together themselves as it suits their own career trajectory and their education requirements, because they're all very, very different. I think it is really is about connecting the dots and just everybody seeing it and asking them to figure it out themselves a little bit with a little help from us.
Yeah. Morgan, you were on a panel at the recent Citizenship and Service Summit. What did you think about the event overall, and anything surprise you about it?
I got to serve on the student panel, which was really fun for me. I got to serve alongside two great student leaders who had really great insight, but I loved the faculty panel. I'm not a STEM major, and so I got to hear from engineering professors about how they try and teach civics, which for me, I'm in the Bush School, so civics is kind of a more natural parlay into what we would talk about in our day-to-day lives. But it was really cool, and it really got me excited about the way these professors were trying to engage with their students, even in a STEM major that maybe isn't the most obvious place to learn civics, but is still equally important to their lives and to the engineering students and all the STEM students.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wasn't that a great story? It was Professor Kelly Brimelow.
It was a phenomenal story, actually.
It's a great story. Yeah. He said, we engineers, we're problem solvers. So we designed this, I think it was waste removal, water treatment for a community outside of the Woodlands, sort of underserved. And they designed it perfectly. 15 years later, the problem was not fixed. And he said, why not? Well, we didn't know how to approach the community. We didn't know how to approach the state legislature. And we really got to do it. And he said there's room to improve there. And he talked about professor exchanges in classrooms. He talked about, and then we had that interesting idea of the faculty development. And there seemed to be a lot of enthusiasm from the professors to help them actually offer some of this, you can call it civics, you can call it citizenship, whatever. There's all this, good stuff inside existing courses.
Yeah. Yeah, the conversation was actually fantastic, and it was really well received, I thought, by everyone there. And there were a lot of different groups represented there. Kim, talk about who was actually at the summit.
Yeah, I'll start with the students, because, we debated how front and center should our student population be. And I did a lot of consulting, and some of the old grads said, starts with the students, bury it all with the students. So we had 1/3 was probably students, and we had a whole panel of just students. And everyone said, well, they're not the leaders on the campus. I said, well, they really are. When it comes to this, they really are. So we had like I said, almost a 1/3, and then we had, it's funny. We had a lot of the academic leadership there. A lot of the deans came, the AOC deans. We had department heads. Just faculty, just teaching less, because, again, we have thousands of faculty members. We couldn't invite them all. So they're represented by their department heads and their deans, who I am confident will communicate all this. In fact, I'm already getting a lot of email, for example, from a couple of professors in the School of Education said, hey, we have all of this that you can work with. We have 8,000 grads out in the state of Texas who want to help. We have all these coming through our pipeline. We want to help. And that was from professors because the deans were communicating with them.
I thought one of the most fascinating things that our faculty panel members brought through the discussion were, we had faculty members from the communications department, we had the department head of philosophy, and an engineering professor, and I had never heard the word Aristotelian before.
Yeah, that's great.
But we're talking
Neither.
about students, becoming better citizens, and we got into Aristotle and Plato and all kinds of things, and it all made perfect sense. Our faculty rocks. They're just incredible.
They're insane.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. So you're plotting your path through this program, let's say. What kind of things would you be interested in doing if you got some kind of credit for doing them so it could replace something else on your schedule that didn't get in the way of your primary degree?
I think for me personally, I would have loved a class on community and local politics. I think it's something that I know so little about but affects my day-to-day life so heavily. And I think specifically my generation knows a lot about national politics but maybe not so much about local politics. So I think it would have been really cool if I could there could be a course or there could be an initiative or some sort of lecture series on local politics and how to engage well with your community. In local politics, especially if you're living in a smaller town. Like, I grew up in Dallas, and so local politics look really differently there than they do here in College Station, just even as a college student. And so I think I personally would have loved something along those lines of, like, how do I engage in local politics, and how do I do that effectively with class and with grace and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Did you know that we have members of our faculty and staff who are local politicians who've been elected, and that the mayor of College Station is a former faculty member? The university is entwined with our local leadership and local governance, and not using that expertise would be crazy.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you completely, Morgan. Really cool.
And boss, when you were the dean, you started a more robust local governance program at the Bush School.
Yes.
And it's recently been a generous donor endowed a chair for the head of local governance. And we're talking about trying to expand the PPIP program, into local, because it's not local right now. It's state and national. So it's great to hear there's interest in that.
Yeah, that program is called the City and County Government Program. It's led by Paul Hoffman, who's a 37-year city manager here in Texas. And the whole idea is to create a pipeline of students who want to leave and go into small town, rural community, county governments in Texas. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal program because we've got students here who want to do that. Yeah. And it's a really viable career path, actually. And you'll find that the city managers of places like Dallas and San Antonio and Austin, and they make a lot of money. So it's actually not like signing up for poverty your whole life if you're good at it. And it's a fascinating career field with a lot of return on your personal investment. Kim, anything surprise you about the summit? Anything that came out of that was an idea that you hadn't considered, or something that got you thinking in a different way?
Good question. I'd done so much consulting in advance. There weren't, I have to say that the response, I knew it was going to be well received, but I did not think the whole thing was going to be so embraced. The fact that the faculty and the provost together want to do a strategic review of learning objectives to actually, make this thing like, is this what every student stands for when they walk across the stage? I think the level of enthusiasm was just a little bit, heartening and a little surprising. And then since we've had a ton of other great ideas, small, more tactical ideas that have come out. Like, for example, asking students to write an essay on citizenship and what that means to them before they come to A&M as they enter. I thought that was a neat idea. Other things like, the fourth-year reflection. Students suggested that. As we apply for graduation, you have to apply to graduate. You have to write a short paragraph on, what this whole educational experience meant to you with regard to being a better citizen. There were a lot of really neat ideas that came out of it, and you gave us great guidance. This is a blank slate. I want you to think hard and be creative, and we did get a lot of that. So, it was pretty great.
Yeah, before any students are listening start to panic, the whole idea is not to give you more work on top of everything you're doing. The idea is to figure out how to give you options within your curriculum and your experience at A&M to put these activities in place of something else. That's the idea. Because I just think our students are the best on the planet, and they can make a difference in their families, their communities, their cities, states, and nation if we just arm them a little bit better. Morgan, if you took a course on how to run for public office here, would you be interested in running for public office?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's my calling. I think I'm more better behind the scenes, but I think that's something that I would love to see more Aggies in office. I would love to see more Aggies run for office. Like you said, I think there's not a group of people that I think would do better and could change our world more. But I think that's a great class we could offer, and I would at least think about it if that class was offered and I was in it. I would have reflection time. I would think about if this was right for me. I could make a more well-informed decision about, is that even a career path for me? And so, yeah, I'm all for that idea.
Yeah, whether it's the school board or president.
Yeah.
You could do either, by the way. But that's the kind of opportunity this gives us. It's a chance to think differently about what we offer to help our students get ready to go chase their own dreams. Kim, talk a little bit about how much work you did before the summit. How many different groups have you visited with? How many networking meetings and listening tour meetings have you made up to this point?
I think I was keeping track on my little Excel spreadsheet of all the individual meetings. I think it was like 97 individual meetings across the span of students, faculty, staff, and then some of the like the Sol Ross group and others that are really interested in the future of A&M. So a lot of those. And that is really where I started to really pick up I always knew our student population was fantastic, but that's what I really spoke with some student leaders and got some other ideas about their participation and how much they actually would want to sort of own this. So just lots. Lots. Everybody from, the CEO of the Corps Cadets Association to the other associations and foundations, to the old grad networks, to students, staff, and faculty. Yeah. A lot. It was fun. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
And I sort of learned my way around campus, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't mention the trip over here this morning.
Exactly.
Kim
Thanks,
did
sir.
what I think all of us have probably done at some point in time, and ended up at the wrong garage trying to find a building that didn't exist in that vicinity.
Exactly.
As a student, that makes me feel so much better. I was lost for like 2 years when I got here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I still get lost when somebody says go to a particular building. Luckily, I have student workers in our building who help me find it. It's very embarrassing. I can just claim being old. I just forgot where it was. I used to know. Morgan, why is A&M the right place to try something like this?
I think it's because we're an institution so rooted in values that's so closely aligned to civics. I think to start, this is an institution that not only has core values but adheres by them, and the population, faculty, staff, and students buy into them in a really specific way. And then I also think, student organizations have been a huge part of my career. And this may be a strange analogy, but I think student organizations are a great metaphor for what civic engagement can look like. Specifically, most of the time, it's volunteer, you're not paid. It's smaller, it's not super high visibility, but it's really, really impactful. And I think that's kind of what student organizations are to me. And I think that's what a lot of being a great citizen is you're not getting paid, but it's so important, and you're doing it because you love it and because you identify with the values and you need to do those things. And I think the combination of values that A&M has that we want to instill in our graduates and to take out, and the fact that we actually do them, we don't just put them on a poster, and then the fact that we already have a built-in student organization system in which we're kind of teaching these smaller leadership skills that then could be translated to citizenship, make us uniquely positioned to be the best in the country at it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Kim, so what are the next steps?
Next steps. So we're collating the tons of input we got. We had all different ways to collect input during the summit. And then before the summit and then after. And I just, so the requests to speak more about it for me to go or my students to go. I have a fantastic student team, three students. It's really, and then one other worker with me. And it's a very small team to go and talk to other groups. Like we just spoke with the Provost Student Advisory Committee. And they suggested, everyone's got suggestions. So we're going to collate all that. We're going to organize it by sort of category, and then we're going to set milestones for each one. Now, some things are really going to be simple and fast. Like, we can hand out constitutions when to all incoming freshmen. That's really easy. We can do some things. We're already doing some things. The governor's school that you had started, we put a real push on it, and that the governor's school at the Bush School is actually starting this summer. We have a philosophy camp on citizenship that the philosophy department picked up because of this initiative. We do a We the People, a civics bee, that's K through 12 pipeline. So we're already doing some things as a result of this initiative that you started. So then again, going forward, there'll be some easy things, and then there are going to be some harder things. If we're going to look at the learning objectives, if we're going to really take a multi-pronged approach and build out what that could look like, connecting all those dots. So we have to be able to explain it. So there's going to be like a task force probably on that. I'm trying to call it a task force and not a committee. I don't know.
I like that. Rebrand.
It's a concrete action, has to get done, has an end. So just, a lot of work. I think the actual hard work is starting now, but I can see it. It's more organized. It's less conceptual. So I'm excited.
Well, it's only more organized and less conceptual because of the work you've done, and because we have students like Morgan weighing in and helping us get this right. Ladies, thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning. Thanks for the work you're doing. I'm tracking it closely and ready to help wherever I can, but I just bow to your expertise.
Oh.
Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here. Brigadier General Kim Field, Morgan Shorn, future President of the United States. We'll be back with Chief Balabina in just a couple minutes.
KAMU Studios loves hiring students. We develop aspiring media professionals by providing hands-on experiences and letting them create for audiences of all ages. Recent graduate Maria Moctezuma.
You can come in with zero experience and come out of here a professional. I definitely wouldn't have gotten a lot of the interviews or opportunities I had if it wasn't for this job.
Eager to learn more? We'd love to connect. Email us today, kamu@tamu.edu.
Welcome back. We've just heard a fascinating conversation with President Welsh, Bush School student Morgan Shorn, and General Kim Field, who is leading our Citizenship and Service Initiative. President Welsh, I was here, I'd say, back in the early days. Have you been here long enough to have early days?
No.
You were interim, and you first laid out the notion of a citizenship initiative. And how refreshing to see it come to life so quickly. I mean, the summit last week, I had the good fortune of being able to participate and to hear the panels of faculty, students, leaders in the university talking about how this can really separate us and make us special was really inspiring. Anything else you want to say in regard to that conversation?
I think the most inspiring thing about all of it is people like Kim and Morgan and the participants in the summit last week, and the way they think through opportunities and problems and challenges and think of ways to succeed in a new and changing environment. It's inspirational. It was really cool to sit through that entire event and listen to the conversations that were going on. Just like it was really cool to sit here and listen to Kim Field and Morgan Shorn talk about citizenship and what it means to them and what it could mean to future generations of Aggies.
Right. Morgan Shorn for president. That's what I got out of it.
Exactly right.
That's right. So great things to come with that, and we hope everybody will stay tuned. And if you have input, share that with General Field. We're in great hands as that effort moves forward to be truly transformational. So this is my favorite part of the podcast, viewers' questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. The very first question I think is exceptional. How has your experience in the military shaped your decision-making at Texas A&M?
Ooh. I don't know that it's specific to decision-making at Texas A&M. It's just how it shaped my decision-making process, I think. And it would be the same wherever I was. And I think it's interesting to me, and some people don't believe me when I say this, but we use the same process in the military we use here at A&M, a process of shared governance. We get everybody's input. Once we have their input, we realize there is a timeline for most decisions, especially in the business the military is responsible for. And so you get all the data you can, you do your due diligence, you get input from every affected community that you possibly can, and then you make the best decision you can when it needs to be made. Sometimes it's a great decision, sometimes maybe it's not. It doesn't turn out to be the right decision, but you make the best decision you can when you need to make it with the information you have. I do the same thing here. There's nothing different about that. Shared governance just means you go through that process every time. And I think you have to religiously stick with the process, or you will not have credibility as a decision maker that you are considering everybody's input. So I think the process is important. I think my military experience drove that home for me. I think it's important that we use the same kind of process here. It gets everybody's voice into the discussion, which matters. It matters to me, it matters to the institution, and it matters to each of those voices because everybody here is part of our success.
Yeah, as someone who gets the privilege to work alongside you every day, it's obvious to me, and was obvious very quickly, that you've run large organizations. And one of the things that I appreciated immediately when you came into this role was the fact that you value pushback. You value getting everyone's input, even if it might be contrary to the way in which you're thinking, because you know that value and that input is necessary to help you make the very best decisions. So really, appreciate that leadership style, and it's something that works really well in a large organization, and you've seen that before, I think. So
yeah, I think one of the facts of trying to manage a large organization is that nobody knows everything that's going on in it or all the factors involved in a decision that impacts a number of people, least of all usually the boss. And so having those voices included in the conversation is really critically important in my mind.
Okay. Second question. I'm going to give a little context for the question before I get to the specific question. But like it or not, these days a lot of people get their news from social media. We spend a lot of time scrolling through X, Facebook, Instagram, all the different various places, and we see things and we don't know always if they're true or not. And recently there's been a lot of swirl on social media about Texas A&M University and Senate Bill 17. And I'd like you to talk about that. Are we in compliance with Senate Bill 17? Maybe first, what is Senate Bill 17 and what is it not? And are we in compliance with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Senate Bill 17, these are my words, but I think it's an intent by the state legislature to make very clear to all citizens of Texas and all organizations that are connected to the state of Texas that it's a meritocracy. That we hire people, we reward people, we pay people, we recognize people based on merit and on nothing else. For a university, we allow people to enter the university. We make admissions offers based on merit. And proven potential, not just potential. We don't do it for any other reason. And there shouldn't be any advantage given to anyone for being a part of a particular group of people or a particular organization or of a particular mindset or anything. It's not about difference. It's about community, and it's about proving that you are meritorious within that community. Those are the things that should get you recognized and rewarded. I think that's what the Senate Bill 17 is to me. There were a number of specific things required under that bill. When the bill was first signed in, I'm trying to remember, August, I think, of 2023, to take effect on 1 January of 2024, Texas A&M got serious about becoming in line with all those requirements before the implementation date of the bill, which we did. I believe we were the first school in Texas. We were certainly the first large school in Texas to be fully in compliance with the law, and we've worked very hard to stay there since that time. We follow the law here. That's not a question mark. We follow the law here. And so some of the concerns on social media are about things that are actually specifically exempted in the bill. For example, academic courses are exempted. Student organizations are exempted. Anything sponsored by, funded by, supported by the university has to be supported equally for all other groups in order to continue. And you can't give special treatment to any particular organization or group. And we have worked very hard to be in compliance with that, and we have been since the bill went into effect.
Right. And I think, as you stated, I've heard you say 100 times, we follow the law, and we've worked really closely with all cabinet members and academic leaders to make sure we are in compliance. So let's drill down a little further on that conversation.
Oh, let's do.
Because along with claims that perhaps we are not in compliance, which are false, there are also some personal attacks on you as a leader of Texas A&M University. I believe you've been called woke, a leftist, a Marxist. And when I see that, I kind of chuckle because I know it's so far from the truth. But then I also remember, gosh, not everybody knows you like I know you. What do you think about these accusations about your leadership?
If you're leading any large organization or organizations of any size these days, you're going to be criticized. It comes with the territory. I understand that. I don't mind that. I don't spend a lot of time and energy worrying about it unless there's truth to what they're saying. In this case, I don't even know what woke means, by the way. Let me tell you what I do believe. I believe that everybody on our campus is family. Everybody, from the day they set foot on campus, whether they're faculty, staff, or students, and they deserve to be treated like family. They deserve to be respected. They should give respect. Their voice deserves to be heard. They need to feel like they're part of the team and that they're a critical part of our success because they are. And I don't think any of us should tolerate anything different than that. It's about commonality. It's about everybody being an Aggie. That's all it's about to me. We shouldn't tolerate anything else on our campus. As far as what were the others, leftist and Marxist, I spent 40 years standing beside a whole lot of great men and women, all willing to die to protect this democracy. The way I see those kind of comments is that they aren't even worthy of consideration as a real insult because they're laughable.
I agree. And you've been talking about citizenship, the whole reason for us doing this special edition of this podcast, like I said, since you got here. Another great thing about you and your leadership is I think from my years around here that good leaders are predictable and they're consistent. And the way you talk about Texas A&M is predictable and consistent since you first stepped into this role, and the family that we are, and the things that you just said. I've heard you say 100 times. So, I appreciate you being willing to, drill down a little bit about some of the things swirling around and maybe have a little straight talk on those things. Anything else on your mind today?
No, just that we're in the middle of another great semester. With all the swirl that's happening nationally and the swirl happening around the university, the day-to-day business of preparing students to go chase their dreams just keeps cooking right along. Our phenomenal faculty keep that on track. They never lose sight of what matters most there. Our students are still engaged, they're energetic, they're fired up about the future, and our staff does everything possible to take care of those two groups of people to maximize their success. It's still a joy to come to work every day on this campus because we've got about 100,000 people all focused on the most important thing there is for us, and that's each student.
Indeed. And as you've said, on any given day, there's 10,000 great things happening right here. So
That's exactly right.
All right. That does it for this special edition of At Ease. Thank you for listening, and remember to submit your questions at our website at tx.ag/atease. Thank you.
Gig 'em.